I'm Davide Gomba. I come from Turin. I'm not a native English speaker, so apologies if I make some words wrong. Well, to start, a warm applause to you all and to the ThingsCon to organize such a very interesting event. It's my second ThingsCon. It's always a blast of networking and new friends and old friends meeting. So thank you guys for having me tonight. Thank you. I'm going to show you a video about the project itself. I hope it's going to show, but it's not going to show. Super. But actually, the video itself is the project we started in 2015 as a way to, at the time, you have to understand that almost 5 years ago, there was a huge hype on IoT. And we all knew that the home would have been the main place where this would happen, because we had some industrial uses of IoT, but people didn't catch up of what could it be in the home environment. We had no Alexa. Google Nest was just bought by Google, but in Europe we didn't have anything. I mean, in Italy right now we don't have that much of a deal with IoT, unless if we add some smart light bulbs and the upcoming voice thing with Alexa and Google Home. Right now in Italy, and this is because of maybe Italian wasn't an interesting language to be for this algorithm to be translated. We'll go back to on the voice in the end of this presentation. So in 2015 we started this project, and we namely work on creating an apartment that had these 3 steps, 3 functions, like a place to have experiments on this upcoming and ongoing IoT thing, and also a place to show off things. During this 5-year project, we also opened it to the people that were interested in having a place to sleep. We chose to put it on Airbnb, which makes the place available also for random people. So the fact that this was the place, actually this is the place, it's a former factory building where actually there is a big co-working that hosted us from 2011, and we were like entering in this place which was full of pigeons, and we started working on recreating the experience. Who was with me in this project? We had Bruce Sterling, which is a science fiction writer living in Turin, his wife Jasmina Tejanovic, Massimo Banzi from Arduino. At the time I was the business manager, the business unit manager of Arduino in Turin. I was working after the store, and I was having some workshops of what would have become the IoT workshop I'm hosting right now by myself, using Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and several other tools. Aurelio Balestra is the guy after the co-working space that witnessed the value proposition of hosting such an apartment. So after some long process, we convinced several stakeholders to finance or lend us some furnitures, some domestic appliances. Namely, this Torino Social Innovation is like a branch of Torino Town Council that lended us some money. I'm still giving back in order to have the place, like as you see in this picture. You should have seen in the video, but anyway, lots and lots of pictures on Casa Jasmina. This is one of the first events we hosted there. It was actually when we opened the place back in 2015. The place was, I mean, we had lots and lots of workshops, events, classes like we had today, but normally since the place has also a lot of places like this, we had presentation, and we also hosted a ThingsCon camp 1 year ago. We had very special guests like Michelle and Peter and Alexandra, who were our first guests in 2015 and helped us in developing a strategy for updating the apartment. At the time, the apartment was not connected at all. Okay, this is really 2015, because at the time the bots were something, I don't know if you remember, 2015, 16, it was the boat years. And this is Tommaso Laterza, who is talking to a thermostat throughout Telegram. we also developed the first library to use Arduino with Telegram, with the Telegram APIs. And he's like, if you go through the conversation, he's playing like a bot. And the bot is replying like a human being. After many years, it's amazing how this has changed with all the intents and the voice recognition and the intent recognition softwares. At the time, one of the main player in this was Massimo, that at the time released this Arduino IoT manifesto that was to some extent relying on what Slow Food did for food. Like, it was imagining an IoT that was open, sustainable, and fair. And I mean, maybe the time changed what was the direction. I mean, not the direction of Arduino, but all the market of IoT. We keep on reading different stories. Bruce, I'm going through all the personalities and the egos here. Bruce was, he's talking at Trasmediale, but few months later he came back to Berlin, and I think it was that ThingsCon 2015 he presented Casa Jasmina. He was talking about this concept of open source luxury, which was to an extent related to what Italian design or DIY design was about at the time. If we were to analyze it, it was like several dichotomies, like mass-produced versus self-produced, and closed source versus open source. At the time, OpenDesk was something, it's a startup from London that was and is releasing open source furniture. So you download it and you produce yourself, and then you're asked to pay a little fee to them in order for the designer to be paid. So it was a totally different business model around DIY and design culture, right? Another thing, why luxury? Because in the end, a closed source mass-produced product ends up to be cheaper than a self-produced open source one. I mean, at the time, because now things are changing. This is Fuori Salone of that year. We went to with OpenDesk, and we show and picture how was the state of open source furniture at the time. Lorenzo Romagnoli, who presented here, maybe last year, I wasn't aware of that. Dear Lorenzo, I knew him since 2011 because he was one of the guys we did the first Fablab in Italy for the celebration of Italian unification. But at the time, he was studying, the year before, he was studying at Delft, and he made, his thesis was about connected devices within the home environment, within the urban and home environment. So we had him in, and he started adding several things. At the time, we were really fascinated by design fiction. This is one of the first attempt. I mean, when you start something, you are more keen to do things in order to identify yourself against or towards the other. So these posters that were made are still downloadable from Casa Jasmina, from the Casa Jasmina side, are depicting some of the highlights of the totem, of the most important things at the time we had around, like this piece by Simone and Cherubini was this fan who was activated based on several things happening in the internet, or the Good Night Lamp by Alexandra, which was to me, was the first IoT project I could understand and like tell to my mother. I mean, it was super powerful as a storytelling tool. And we had, of course, we had one, Alexandra gifted us one at the time. Or like this OpenDesk table, or this, I mean, jokes. Mama told not to talk to a kitchen, I don't know. In 2015 was a joke. In 2020, maybe real. Maybe a nightmare, maybe, who knows. So, in a way, I have to say, in this first year of life, Casa Jasmina was a place to celebrate this new culture, this design fiction that was becoming a thing, at least in Italy or in Europe. These are pictures from the Share Festival of the time. Share Festival is a festival Bruce and other people, Jasmina and Chiara Garibaldi and a lot of other people in Turin organize every year. The year was specifically and namely about this topic. We also hosted other events who were big in our in Italy at least. Well, I don't know if any of you know about Samantha Cristoforetti, who is a very famous astronaut, female astronaut in Italy, or Paolo Antonelli from MoMA that arrived in Casa Jasmina and said, I've seen so many Fab Labs, but this is the first home that respects somehow these aesthetics, right? And then is Jasmina. Jasmina, she developed and released this very interesting manifesto about the Internet of Women Things, which was pragmatic and feminist about the final use of things. Maybe also against this idea of the art that, or also the nerdish approach that some programmers have towards developing something that is totally unrelated with the problem they have to face. I advise you to go and read. She demanded a friendly appearance of the product design on a real purpose, of course, open sourceness. I think open source was one of our main topic, and also one of the reasons why we are actually closing the apartment and shifting to another legacy and another level of the project, because to an extent the business model, which was this one actually, these were our business model, we were like looking for sponsorship, and we had many sponsorships at the time. We were offering residencies, and also we offered people to showcase their stuff. What we were doing to the companies were actually, were actually R&D, or a place to like deep dive into with a team and look for solution with other problems. We had many residencies. We had School of Machines, Rachel Hua, that arrived in a very cold winter in 2016, and we hosted their project for 2 months. At the time, other things started around Europe and involving us as well. One of which is, for example, the Mozilla Open IoT Studio, which was something that played a big role for me and for Casa Jasmina, because we kind of felt that these kind of topics were felt all around Europe, right? Not just ThingsCon, not just Casa Jasmina, but all of other people, not even Europe, because I was able to meet very important people that changed the way I see things, like Babita George from Quicksand and Vladan Joler. I mean, it was really, really, really cool. This was Casa Jasmina team from 2016. Actually, in 2016, many things happened, like Arduino chose to step back from the project. So, in a way, part of that team faded away, and it was at some point I chose to go on with the project myself and learn from what I've seen for those 2 first years of the project itself. So actually, not just because Arduino was leaving, but in order to understand what's a home, how to design a home environment, how to design an apartment, I understood that our approach had to be hardware and software agnostic. So no need to see which hardware I'm taking unless it's respecting several criteria. Another approach I understood was that we need not to code. We need not to design yet a new thing. A lot of people have been working in the year were really keen in recreating things that, since I was not coming back, was not coming from a coding experience, I would Google and find, oh, what they did the same. But if we now start to code it, I mean, maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks work, we're going to do something better. But if we start to develop on top of their shoulders, maybe we're going to do that in 3 days, okay? Another thing, I mean, putting in the user shoes, I mean, it's not something we didn't do before, but we're going to see how Casa Jasmina deployed and declined on several other realities, several other scenarios. Yeah, the basic idea was that we were prosumers, we want to talk about consumers, and we want to talk to consumers. But in the end, a consumer in a home environment, it's a citizen. So we were, and we are talking to citizen. I mean, citizen is somehow not working because you are a citizen in a public society, while in your home you should not be in your public sector, in your public sector. But now this this line is so blurry, right? So I chose to use this word. And I kind of, before there was a link on Reddit, I use Reddit in a maniacally, and also Hacker News and many other tools, but those are the principal tools, the main tools. And I started watching what's already there, staring at me, screaming, I'm the house you want to have, or I tried to do this, why don't you test it? So we tested the Home Assistant, which was born in 2014, 15, like, it's super young and super increasing. It's a wonderful project. We watched and witnessed the shifting to OpenHub, to the new version, and we started using MQTT and Node-RED overall, which is a gold mine. To all the students, and not just the students, I strongly advise you to dive into Node-RED, because it's to a non-programmer, it's a super interesting tool that allows you to do so many different things. Node-RED is coming many times in this presentation, this short presentation. So in 2017, we choose to decline this concept of house into an installation. Postcards from Casa Jasmina was an installation we brought to Fuorisalone, and it was like a conversation. You could trigger these things by chatting with them throughout Telegram or Facebook Messenger. It was, at the time, it was super complex, but we managed to make it work. And it was like the first time we had a piece of Casa Jasmina going around to explain others what we were doing, right? And we had very good feedbacks. Actually, Casa Jasmina went twice in Shenzhen that year, was invited twice in Shenzhen, and went to London to ModsFest. On top of that, we had the first chance to use these tools for a real world scenario. So we were contacted by the social health from Lombardy, a very tiny place, northern Milan, not very close to our place. And we were asked to solve a very interesting problem. Laura and Tatiana, that were living in a social health house, they wanted to go live by themselves. In order to do that, we had to create a discrete system that would allow them to live by themselves, and the caregivers monitor them. So we managed to create and interview all the players in this conversation, which were the caregiver, the girls, and their parents, and we were able to scout and analyze several levels and layers of problems. Like on the left, you see several smart watches with the SIM. We scouted in 2016, 17, and we weren't able actually to geofence in the way they needed the girls going to work, because at the time you couldn't customize these kind of devices. Nowadays it's shifting, it's different. You know, on the top. You have this picture, which was the inauguration when we opened the apartment, which was blessed by the priest of the village. It was an amazing moment. And this is Ilaria Scarpellini from UX Pills that helped us out in analyzing the needs of these people. Back in 2017, I was invited in Shenzhen by Monica and Eric Pano. Monica is around somewhere from Seed, and we were in Chaihuo Hackerspace, X Factory, and we were able to talk about this concept of AI in the home. We were starting using Snips and Mycroft, which were two tools that were able to have local voice recognition, which means having everything coded and analyzed and trained in a local environment. My classical studies comes in. There is a very cool concept from the Romans. They had this genius loci, this like god of the house, and it's interesting how their idea of god of the house is really close to what's going to happen in the AI of our home in the next 10 to 20 years, like things that are like ethically grow with you. It's interesting. Here's another video from Snips. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's not playing. Maybe I'm going to, but it's like 5 seconds. Is how Snips was working in the training. Like, I don't know how many of you, have you ever heard about Snips.ai? Like, okay, yes. And have you ever trained a bot using Snips.ai? Raise your hand. Many people, not that many, but yeah. So they had a very interesting business model because they had past. We're going to go also that because you could like train online, so you kind of train the intents online, and then you download it on the device. And in 2018, something really cool happened. I mean, many cool things happened at Seed, but this was the one that shocked me a little bit, because actually Seed partnered with Snips, and they released a development kit that allowed many people, to create voice interactions. So it was super cool. At the time, we at Casa Jasmina, we organized and launched this Magic Mondays, which is basically the IoT meetup of Turin. And we invited the people from Volumio, which is offering an open source solution for music in the home. It's very interesting, their business model, because they are actually selling this hardware also to big producers of sound machines for the house, for like music in the house, but this producer, they don't have the expertise for make clean IoT, so they actually provide the electronics for it. So it's quite interesting. We also collaborated a lot with this guy in the middle, Fabrizio Valpreda, that for several years made these projects with his students from Design by Components at Polytechnic of Turin, which provided all sorts of different devices that were connected all together in this operative system that was based on Node-RED and Home Assistant, and then, I mean, every 2 or 3 months we were used to change the things, like change the game and see how is these new things coming out from OpenHub and so on and so forth. This, for example, is yet another Magic Monday where we hosted this guy from Milan that developed a framework to create bots, any kind of bots, like any, meaning also WhatsApp, not Twilio, not traditional stuff, using Node-RED. It's called Redbot. And then Seed launched this competition with Snips about smart homes. And we enrolled by creating a UI for the temporary home, because Casa Jasmina used to be like a short and temporary place to live. And this was somehow a problem because it didn't allow us to analyze the behavior of people for longer stay, like weeks or even months. And so we built on top of Snips, we created a bot that was able to inform you about all the things that the house was offering. Yeah, yet another things we didn't do a startup for. We should have startup that, but yeah. And then we go today. I mean, we are jumping in 2019, and I don't know if you, I mean, since I was talking about Snips, I wonder if you noticed that on the 20th of November, Snips was acquired by Sonos. And also that the 3rd of December, like 20 days later, was shut down. So no more console.snips.ai, no more bots using vocal assistant. So since I'm happy for the people at Snips.ai, but I wonder, and maybe this is a question I pose to the audience and to the people at ThingsCon, to what extent this trust mark works if it's open source, that maybe if you got the trust mark, then you freeze the thing to an extent when it's then bought, and then somebody shut it down. Or maybe I think the problem here was that all the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure for the training was partially closed source, maybe. I mean, I didn't dive into the problem itself. I strongly advise you to follow Home Assistant blog, where Paul, the guy who founded Home Assistant, is really keen in analyzing this kind of accidents to an extent. He's also analyzing other accidents happening in the same time of year. Probably between Black Friday and CES, that's the moment of acquisition and shutting down things. I don't know why. it's something that is. But what's now? I mean, I was interviewed before about this trustable IoT and what is possible and what is happening. And I answered that we have a really bad and dramatic way to depict this. Maybe we should add some irony. Maybe we should become more pop in telling these stories in order to have people keen on toying around things. Or maybe some of the youngsters who were presenting before should make startups to allow people to be aware that more than 700 devices nowadays are reprogrammable. And I'm not saying, I mean, in Casa Jasmina, we made the thermostat. So you took the Arduino MKR or the ESP or whatever, and you built a thermostat that was working in Casa Jasmina, but you couldn't install to somewhere else, right? Because it wasn't certified. Tomorrow, my friend Loic is presenting Industruino, which is a PLC, which is, I mean, it's programmable like an Arduino, but it's certified to be used in the factories. And that's exactly what these devices do for the home automation. So there are more than 700 devices that you can program, and they are not listening, hopefully, they're not listening anymore to the firmwares that had in the factory that are connected to some apps, but you can like connect them to several other tools, like this is Home Assistant's integration page. So you have more than 1,500 different commercial devices. You can hook these things up, or you can like create the platform in which build these conversations, create and negotiate these conversations that are not anymore related to what somebody in, I don't know where, but at Amazon or at Google defined as the definition of relationship within the home between me and you, but the interaction we want to make. Okay, this is, I mean, I was accused to be too much pro Home Assistant, so I try to balance, and actually OpenHub has more integration, so it's more than 2,000 for OpenHub, which is an older project. But I was amazed. I looked for this on I discovered this site, very interesting site. It's a github.io. I mean, it's a site that builds this Tasmota is the firmware, all devices based on the kind of plug they have, and you have all sorts of appliances, which is the building block of the home. If you want to make an intervention, all the designers that want to prototype, we have seen a lot of interesting toolkits, which I used in this experiences. Maybe these toolkits now can have a related hardware and a related firmware. I mean, it's really quick now, but it wasn't 2 years ago. These things happened in the last 2.5 years. Or at least it became relevant that I heard of it in the last 2.5 years to create interactive plug, interactive fans, interactive anything, and connect them and negotiate connection. So the big question is, how do we want to live? And how do we live? Because most of you want to live in a distributed to decentralized home, decentralized environment where you have several devices connected to several services and have their privacy like covered and kept, well kept. But I raise your hand if you have a Gmail account. Like, sure, there is somebody who doesn't have a Gmail account here. Wow, that's good, really good, really good. Well, I mean, I have several. I also had a company account, this Gmail account. So I was told that if you pay, then you have I mean, it's more private. I don't know, anyway. But the point is that maybe we should see in our everyday approach, we should look in our everyday approach, and we should also, maybe we should be forced to design and sketch our house, not based on the products that we see in, sold, but on the needs we have. I know this is a prosumer approach, so maybe the people here should work to make it a citizen approach. That's the shiftment we have to make. So this is the very shiftment we are going to make about Casa Jasmina, which is shifting from house, which is a physical place, to a home. And possibly you can help us to promote the legacy of the project, and help us, if you were in Casa Jasmina, to send us pictures, and also working on this little pamphlet we want to develop with Bruce, Jasmina, and all the people that were in this story, to somehow represent the legacy of the project that was started in this 2015 moment, which was the midst of the decade of the hype of IoT. We are now in the last days of the decade, and I think the next decade is going to have less drama around this and have more people keen to negotiate their very own conversation with these devices. Thank you.